I am joined by Mathews Mhuru. He is Alliance Country Coordinator for Civil Society, Scaling Up Nutrition, CSO-SUN, and he is here to just look at the Food and Nutrition Act of 2020, which was passed in Parliament last week. And of course, it did get some stakeholders very excited, as they expect the food and nutrition situation to change with the enactment of the Act. Now, the provisions of the Act will strengthen nutrition coordination in Zambia. On the other hand, stakeholders also feel that the Ministry of Health is not the right ministry to spearhead food and nutrition mandate, as they are very limited in terms of function. So let's just get to chat to Mr. Mhuru. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure to wake up very early and be part of the program.
No, we're also very happy to have you on Morning Live. Now, your thoughts on the Food and Nutrition Act?
Okay, so this is a very progressive act. A lot of stakeholders are actually very happy because this is a process that has taken very long. And by very long, I mean it has taken over 6 years of just negotiating, the back and forth, having meetings with ministries, health, justice, and also Parliament, just pushing them so that they start demanding that this act, or the bill goes to Parliament. So the fact that, it was enacted last week is something that brings delight to a lot of stakeholders that are working in the nutrition space, just knowing what this act can actually do in changing the nutrition status of the country.
Talking about what it can do, to what extent will this address the nutrition situation in the country, especially when it also comes to strengthening nutrition coordination in Zambia?
Yeah, so I think coordination is key. A number of sectors, a number of ministries have to play a role in just improving the nutrition situation in the country. So you'd realize that the Ministry of Water and, Sanitation has to, they have a role to play in improving nutrition, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of General Education. So having the coordination piece in order is one progressive, move. But also, if you just look at other provisions of the Act, which would include, constituting a coordinating committee, which has, participation from the Vice President's office, as well as also just all the stakeholders that, and the ministries that have to play a role in just, addressing the challenges of malnutrition in the country, is something that is very, very key. And I think for us, just seeing the fact that the Act also provides for a nutrition program in the country that also looks at the right to food. So with the right to food, it means that, you are looking at people's dietary needs being met, whether you have disasters or, you have certain situations that limit access to diets that meet people's, needs. That is something that is very progressive. And also some of the challenges that we've been able to see, I think over the years, if you look at just financing when it comes to nutrition, this is some area that has been very disturbing. A good example is just revelations from the Auditor General's report. If you look at the Ministry of Education, the entire budget for the school feeding program, being channeled to other things or other areas of need within the ministry, and we are hoping that this particular act that has been enacted, can address all of those challenges and just bring all stakeholders and controlling officers, permanent secretaries to, just look at nutrition as a way, to just improve the country's development, because human capital development is really, really important for our country.
Okay. Now, some stakeholders feel that the Ministry of Health is not the right ministry to spearhead food and nutrition in the country, stating that the mandate is limited in terms of functions. Your thoughts on those concerns?
That's very correct. So if you look at, just food and nutrition, these are broad topics. So food production, for example, you'd realize that it's the Ministry of Agriculture that manages food production and livestock to some extent. If you look at the Ministry of Health, implementing nutrition specific interventions, so their mandate would not go to food production, it would not go to, just making access to just availability of food to people who need it. So for them, they're really looking at the fact that, they're dealing with maybe curing cases of malnutrition, severe acute malnutrition and the like. But when it comes to the preventative side, where you are dealing with diets, you're dealing with food and the like, they're very limited. They play a very limited role. So hence, stakeholders, when they're discussing placement of where the national food and nutrition should be and who should probably hold, the ministry that should be holding this particular act, they would actually say, it should go to the vice president's office because it has more authority to actually provide checks and balances to all the 11 ministries that have to play a role in just, improving the nutrition status of the country. And also stakeholders feel that, if you charge or you give authority to one ministry to look, and provide checks and balances to other ministries, effectiveness of how that, will be done is not so much, because you are a ministry, I'm running a ministry. Who are you to come in my ministry and tell me what I'm not doing right and the like? So we feel that, if we can raise, just give this particular mandate to a higher office, including maybe the vice president's office or cabinet, that, that's the only way that would get meaningful change, and just the alarming rates of malnutrition in the country, seeing that decline that we've always wanted to achieve.
From your assessment, you feel like other ministries should equally be involved? Shouldn't it have been a collaboration with other ministries that are, relevant to this cause?
Yeah, that is supposed to be the way to go. And the beauty is that if you look at the Act, it actually has a coordinating committee which would involve the different ministries. But just the fact that you have given one ministry to look after the rest of the other ministries, it doesn't really give them, that energy or desire to really work towards improving nutrition. So hence, certain times you would find ministries would, not really prioritize issues to do with food and nutrition. As just the example that I gave, the Ministry of Education, just misappropriating or just misapplying the funds that are supposed to actually play a role in improving nutrition through their sector. So if at all that is not happening, then who is Ministry of Health to go and tell them what they didn't do right and how they should do it better? But if it was cabinet, for example, we saw, just the secretary to cabinet talking to permanent secretaries and just telling them that, the misapplication of funds should not be happening. So that's something that we really want to see going forward.
Any other major challenges you foresee with the implementation of the Food and Nutrition Act?
Yeah, so I think the major one is also funding. Apart from placement, funding to nutrition has been very, very poor, and we've been very dependent on donors. So I think 2017 should have taught Zambia a huge lesson. We saw a decline in just donor support going towards nutrition, and that was a very big drain. So over 80% of our nutrition budget was coming from donors, and in 2017, when that money was not being given to the nutrition space, there was a lot of challenges that have gone on. And even just, I think, the cases of malnutrition, if there was an assessment that was to be done now, you'd realize that the figures that we have in the demographic health survey might not actually be the correct figures that we have. Just seeing that, we went through droughts, we went through floods, and now we have COVID that is pushing food prices, and just the economic challenges that we're going through that have pushed the food prices very, very, unaffordable when it comes to just looking at the basic or an ordinary Zambian. So, funding to nutrition should really be considered as a thing that would actually help this act to yield the intended results.
What are some of your recommendations you can put forward to ensure efforts to level up issues of nutrition are prioritized? Yeah,
so I think the first one has to do with placement. So placement, we really have to get the coordination piece right by just ensuring that the mandate of holding everybody accountable, ensuring that every ministry, every sector plays their role. The Vice President's office is given more mandate. And with this also, you'd realize that in times of disaster, you'd have the disaster management unit that would give foods. But if you look at the foods that they'll be giving, they'll just be giving mealie meal and maize to people who don't have any other food to consume. So, but if you put the Food and Nutrition Commission in their office, they can collaborate and ensure that the dietary needs of people are actually, looked into when they are looking at food distribution. The next thing has to do with funding. So financing to nutrition cannot be left, to be managed by donors. Currently, donors have pumped in over $100 million. But if you look at our domestic budget, if you check the budgets for nutrition, it leaves a lot to be desired. So there's a lot that we can do when it comes to just nutrition financing and just saving the lives of, the little ones that would die as a result of malnutrition.
Okay, Mr. Mhuru, thank you very much for making an appearance on Morning Live.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Mathews Mhuru there, Alliance Country Director for Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition, CSO-SUN, and he was here on set just to look at the Food and Nutrition Act of 2020, which was passed in Parliament last week. Very interesting, Mary. I think diet is a very important part of our lives, and it's something that's very, 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 very necessary.
Yeah. Especially for, my concern is for children. Because, remember when we were talking to Penelope earlier on, we spoke about the foundation, the background, and she spoke about how she did her school in Botswana, and I felt that it has an effect on her professionalism, what she learned when she was younger. So even the food we give our children when they're younger, I think it determines even their stature, their intelligence, their, just the way their
general well-being,
their health. So I think, is it the first 1,000 days?
Yes.
Yeah, the first 1,000 days. They're very critical. Children need to have adequate nutrition. Very adequate. Why are you laughing?
No, because when my children were growing, I remember being told, when I was having children, actually, I remember being
told.
You're
no longer having children?
I'm done. I'm done with that chapter.
This is national TV, so you may just go back on your words. Be careful what you say on TV.
So I remember, I remember being told to make porridge with pounded kapenta.
Kapenta, yes.
Oh my God.
It's very nutritious.
I couldn't even get myself to even taste that, but then I was feeding the poor child. I was like, no, come on. But it's kapenta obviously is a very good source of protein.
So
and also maybe some of our people also have these foods and they just don't know how to maybe utilize them. Like if you can afford kapenta, why not pound it and put it in the porridge for your baby? As opposed to just giving the child plain porridge. Just meal meal and sugar. Those are empty calories when you think about it.
You're actually right. If you look at the demographic health survey, it shows you that children that have, access to what they call the minimum acceptable diets, which is just diverse foods frequently, are actually 11%. So over 80% of children in Zambia are not given foods, that are diverse, that meet their dietary needs on a frequent basis. So a lot of people have to just understand the different foods, what value they add to their children and how they can prepare them by pounding them and adding them to the meals that the children consume. So especially during pregnancy, because that's it's part of the 1,000 days. So mothers have to eat healthy. You watch what you eat.
I have to eat healthy means part. I need to start now. You heard what he said.
Porridge
so you need to give me proper food after this show.
No, give her porridge with pounded
and don't give her fritters with Fanta.
And that's what she gives me. She gives me fritters with Fanta.
It's what she wants to eat. She actually goes looking for that as early as 7 hours in the morning, 6:30. Should I even reveal the other food?
The Shima morning Shima. It's okay. All right, let's go for our weather forecast. And we still have Dr. Kalangwa in studio for the COVID update, and we still have sports coming up. So let's take the weather and see what's going on outside.